I don't know any taxpayer who doesn't want to see the taxpayers' money used to the fullest advantage. And I think that the difference that we see across government is the need to make sure we use those things as effectively as we can. That means we do have a lot of legacy, but almost any application anyone develops ever is legacy as soon as it's installed. I think we've got to understand that that's the case. You're seeing here today from my colleagues excellent ways to deal with new and changed activities in government and in the way that we do things. And I think that's the sort of thing that I see across government in IT all the time. Not everything works the first time, but I think we get more publicity than others when it doesn't. And I think the vast number of things you see work well in government, if you only just lift the covers, are probably generally underreported, which is why I don't like the question very much.
So I tend to agree with John on the fact that it's very easy to give the APS a kick. And partly because that's, what we do is actually probably more transparent and open to the public than many other organisations. There is a lot of good things that we do. There are a lot of improvements we can make. And in terms of overall opportunities for those improvements, I'm an optimist in as much as I can see a target-rich environment. So I think there's some underlying structural issues we're going to have to address. There's been, again, a number of people here have talked about moving to the cloud, for example. The way we're going to treat technology in the future is going to put a whole range of different pressure on how we budget things, how we finance things, how we approve things, how we manage things, how we monitor their performance. Because once you shift off your big assets with CapEx and into OpEx, that changes your balance sheet. It changes how you operate. And that's a big ask for government, which is fixed into one way, and a lot of its structures are doing things. It's like changing the course of the Titanic at that level. But there's a target-rich environment. Not only that, but we're in the middle of a technology revolution. Just like winter, disruption is coming. If it hasn't hit you, it will soon. Meteorology is one of those areas. We're one of the original Internet of Things agencies, and we can see disruption coming. So it is coming, and we need to actually adjust and have the agility to do that.
A couple of things that made our project particularly successful that I think tackle this question. I think the first one was the approach we used for getting our design right. And we conducted a lot of individual client research with individual taxpayers to actually understand how their behaviour will get influenced by the designs that we come up with. And I think those sorts of techniques are inherently important as we go through the modernisation of whatever agency or institution that we've got. And I think that was one of the fundamental kind of drivers behind it. And I think the second one was the cross-agency collaboration. There was some reference earlier about MyGov. One of the things that I think made this very successful is we've put the tax experience behind the MyGov credential, which means that we've driven quite a lot of uptake into a whole-of-government capability, which means that you can see the beginnings of that collaboration on a cross-agency perspective, which I think has been fundamentally helpful in terms of driving both our uptake but also the use of that as a whole-of-government asset.
So supercomputing, I'm lucky in some respects. Supercomputing is a glamour part. It's like, as I said, it's like the F1. We get walk-ins. Part of the problem is keeping them because, again, everything goes through cycles, and your funding cycle is not necessarily geared to keeping or building capability. In the current program, we've put a lot of effort into building that capability because it is core to our business, and that's been quite a tough ask. It's also part of an ecosystem. So again, we don't just need people who do scientific computation, who do the models, who can actually port them across, do all that sort of thing. It's all the things around it that actually make it, the data ingest, fairly, what would otherwise pass for being fairly mundane and traditional. And we struggle. But even in the high end, it's clear that we have to build a critical mass. So we're working with other agencies who are interested in this. And so given that supercomputing is considered by many other countries to be a national competitive resource, this is something that's really in the national interest as well. It's not just in our agency interest, it's actually in the national interest too. So we're trying to find different ways to do this, how we can build the STEM programs. A lot of it is about building and developing our own people. That's because we can't, we're a small player in the big scheme of things. And a lot of the people we want will be pulled off overseas, and we will struggle. It's hard.
I'm always struck by the fact that people who talk about the importance of skilling, of drawing talent from overseas, often come from overseas. And the challenge to me suggests that this is to some extent self-reinforcing behaviour, that it's about a cultural cringe about Australian technology and about Australian workers and indeed about Australian public servants that I frankly just don't see. I see a whole bunch of people who work for me, all of whom are Australian citizens, all of whom put absolutely everything they can in developing really good products. And I'd have to say that it frustrates me to see some of those challenges dismissed as not being good enough or not delivering enough and things like that. Do we want the best of talent in our country? Of course we do. But we're not going to get that if we keep going around saying that we don't have it to start with. And we have good talent here. We have good talent working in the public service. We're delivering things, and I think sometimes that just doesn't get picked up enough. Could we access and should we be open to exploring other things that have occurred overseas? Well, of course we should. But I think there's a lot of talent that goes very much underreported in Australia and in the public service.
Well, I'm reasonably new to the public sector, but I've been blown away by the capability that I've got at my disposal. Really pleasantly impressed with the passion and the commitment of our people. I think my challenge is kind of twofold. One, to keep them as excited and enthusiastic about it. And part of that is a belief in what they're doing. They really do get enjoyment out of providing an experience and a client experience that is second to none. And I think that that is fundamental. But it's also about the skilling and the capability, because I think we're still going through a journey where we're moving towards more agile capabilities, different technologies, and I think that's the way we keep people attracted and motivated. And I think those are some of the things that we've got on as our challenge.